Today, our topic of discussion is something that is very raw. And I do not want to purport to know everything because I'm still figuring it out myself. But I'm going to share what I have gathered so far in the hope that it will reach out to someone else who could be navigating the same experiences. Now, I want to start by saying that this particular episode is going to appeal to the people who are neurodivergent, but especially African women who are neurodivergent. And as I continue, you will understand exactly why I'm saying this. An experience that neurodivergent women normally go through is that feeling of invisibility. And, the most frustrating thing about this experience is that you're usually quite intelligent, because let me first explain to you what neurodivergence means, the clinical term, okay? A neurodivergent person is someone whose brain processes information, emotions, attention, and social interaction, and even learning actually, as well as sensory experiences differently from what society normally considers as typical. So what you need to understand is that if you are neurodivergent, there are social cues that you might never fully understand. And this is the thing, when I say that you want to understand some experiences and all that, I don't want you to look at this as playing victim. I want you to understand where this comes from. So what normally happens is that you might not know the rules, the social rules about maybe how you're supposed to display enthusiasm, how you're supposed to display disagreement, what level of directness is acceptable in society, when you're supposed to speak or when you're not supposed to speak. And so you'll find that neurotypical people navigate these experiences so easily. But when you're neurodivergent, you find yourself wondering, is there a rule book? Is there a social rule book that I never really got? And honestly, why I'm saying this is a very raw topic is because I personally have experienced this, and like I said, I'm still figuring it out, but I think I've gotten to a place that I think can really help you. Because I remember at campus, I had a friend of mine and we're having conversations. Now she is a very neurotypical person. And she made me realize that, there might be something a bit different about you. Because I got to a point where I asked her, how do you know what you're supposed to do in society? Because I remember navigating experiences in a way that I would depend on the reactions or the responses of other people to know whether what I was doing was right or wrong. And this is the thing, when you're neurodivergent, I think when you're growing up, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's easier than when you become an adult, because when you're growing up, there's rules in place. I'm supposed to do this, I'm not supposed to do that. When you become an adult, you realize that you don't necessarily have to depend on other people. You don't have to outsource your validation. So that's when you start taking back your power. But this is a very difficult process because you will face a lot of rejection in society. Not to say that you didn't face it growing up, because I know neurodivergents normally are rebellious to rules. Like I said, the way that you process information is quite different from how other people process information. Yeah. And so sometimes you might be an outcast. Some people might admire your boldness, but still you're going to be treated as I don't know, just unconventional. Now, I want to get back to why this is going to appeal to African women who are neurodivergent. Now, I wanted to explain to you that there is a social hierarchy. And I'm telling you guys, I have done the work, I have done the research, because I have been observing people over time. And obviously from reading as well, I've understood that there is a social hierarchy. Now, I don't know if you people are familiar with intersectionality. The term intersectionality was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw. And basically what she was trying to say was that Black women's experiences cannot be understood simply by looking at race or gender. So there's a social hierarchy that obviously starts with race. So, but at the top of race, there's also gender. So at the top, when you look at any, should I say division? I don't have the words for that right now, but any social group, when you look at any social group, the first thing that's considered is gender, especially if the person is already white. Okay? So, let me not confuse you. The social hierarchy is this: white men, white women, Black men, and Black women. Now, I know when we say Black women, you might also, refer to yourself as that, but I do feel like as African women, we do have some experiences that might be a bit different. So let me say African women, or African men, African women, and then neurodivergent African women. So are you seeing the social hierarchy? And now, again, I'm not telling you this because I want you to play victim. I'm telling you this because knowledge is the source of wisdom, especially if you use it in the right way. So what happens is that you are outnumbered. And on top of that, according to research, most women who are neurodivergent have been reported to have hormonal imbalance. Or most women who have hormonal imbalance are reported to be neurodivergent. Now, neurodivergents can be people who have ADHD, who are autistic, who have dyslexia, Tourette's. It can also be, sometimes we'll include OCD and BPD, but pretty much hormones affect neurotransmitters, which means that your nervous system is more sensitive to shifts in environment. Have you understood that? Now let's get to the next thing. Now, I told you at the start that social environments are built on rules that neurotypicals absorb intuitively. Like, they just know, like in this instance, you're not supposed to speak. You're not supposed to disagree in this way. Or you're not supposed to show like too much joy. Like, they understand the social hierarchies. Now, as a neurodivergent person, you are unaware of these experiences. And so what happens is that you go through life feeling isolated, rejected. You become socially exhausted from just dealing with people. You constantly feel misunderstood. And this is because you have a difficulty masking your emotions. Where a neurotypical will say, in this particular instance, I'm not supposed to show this, I'm supposed to act this type of way. You might be too much. I'm going to put that in quotes. And so because of that, people who are neurotypical, and like I said, you are outnumbered. So neurotypicals are going to look at you like you are completely weird. And let's add a layer of being African, because I know that most of the neurodivergent people tend to get into things like energy, whimsical things. If you're listening to this podcast, then you're obviously into some sort of energy, or you're attracted to energy in some sort of way, because the way that your brain processes things can be quite different. And, you need to understand that African women are normally granted social acceptance on the condition that we remain digestible. You get? You're expected to just be practical, grounded, resilient, and competent. They don't want to hear about you being eccentric, about you being unconventional, and about you being whimsical, because you are violating an unwritten script. So in situations where other people are discussing logic, you might be thinking about existential topics. The way that you're going to approach a normal topic is going to be very different. Now, the thing is, they really love us when it comes to art, creating, and all those things. But usually, society does not hold enough space for people who are neurodivergent. Yeah? And now it becomes worse when you're a woman, because you're already navigating stereotypes. You know, they're telling you you're so defensive, you're so this, you're so that. You have a cycle that you go through, monthly cycle. You'll find that there's some women who tell you like, yeah, like my hormones are really okay. Like I don't really get these issues. Doesn't necessarily mean they're neurotypical, but most of them are. And the people who are neurodivergent go through an internal crash out. But remember, you're a woman. You're not supposed to externally show this. You're supposed to pull it in. So I want you to imagine this being your whole experience growing up to death. You know, you're in your mid-20s, late 20s, late 30s, 40s, 50s, and you have gone through this. Just imagine the accumulation of wounds that you've collected, because you're very socially aware. You know, like you trust what you see, like you've done your research, you know pattern recognition, you can tell when you're being slighted, you can tell when people are intentionally isolating you. Sometimes, and this is an experience that I've had with neurotypical women, again, I'm not calling them out in an aggressive way, but I've found that there's a very big number of neurotypical women who are very male-centered. And so they filter you through the lens of patriarchy. That is how they receive you. So they're constantly trying to flag you, control your reactions, control everything about you. Now I want to talk about an experience I've had with neurotypical women where they'll meet me one-on-one. We'll have a very good conversation. We'll discuss certain things and we're like on the same wavelength. Or maybe in that moment, I've inspired them to think outside the box. And then when I meet them in a social group, there's animosity. It's almost like they do not want their fellow neurotypicals to know that they believe the same thing that I do. And then remember, as a neurodivergent person, you can tend to be very sensitive to rejection. Yeah? So if something that might just feel like normal heart will feel visceral to you. Yeah? So I have dealt with such experience with neurotypical women, and I've gotten to a point where I realized, okay, I need to reject the spaces that reject me. I know this sounds radical, but if you have gone through this all your life, let me tell you, the remedy is not going to be trying to be accepted in those places, because the situations where I felt like, why do I feel like an outcast in a place that I know so well that I can name the patterns on the walls inside this building? I'm intellectually capable of holding conversations that require me to be in this house, in this room. But then you share something and it just feels off. Like when you share it, it's received in a way that's just weird. And you're like, am I tripping? Am I tripping? Honestly, sometimes I'm like, just cut the cameras, show me the cameras. Tell me this is a movie. This is a prank. Because I know myself as, okay, not to be cocky, but I believe that I'm intelligent enough and my contributions are very efficient, effective, valuable. So sometimes I get confused when I share, when I contribute in groups of people who have that mentality. And it's almost like everyone's looking, like it's an energy. Again, as a neurodivergent person, you become very fluent in energy. And the energy just feels like you committed some crime and you're like, but what did I do? Yeah. What was so off about what I said? And then this is the interesting thing, because I've also noticed that people who are neurotypical tend to love packs, they love to have a leader that they listen to. Like I told you, they understand social hierarchy. Now, as a neurodivergent, you do not understand that. Honestly, I could sit with the president of whichever country and I'm not going to do the whole, trying to bend my knees, trying to cater to them. Like, I'm just going to have a conversation with you. And that's why I feel like even growing up, I made connections with people who were way older than me, because I didn't really understand hierarchy. For me, we're having a discussion, and that's pretty much it. So, because these people love hierarchy so much, they will wait for their leader to validate you. Okay? And when the leader validates you, all of a sudden, what you said is funny. Honestly, like, I'm so funny, sometimes I crack myself up. Yeah? But there are times when you will share something, and until the leader laughs, no one's gonna laugh. Or no one's gonna say, oh, that's cool. And I've experienced this even on a corporate level. Obviously not the joke thing, because I'm not always I'm not a clown. I'm not trying to make people laugh, all the time. But I mean just in terms of your contributions being treated as nothing, or just being seen as invisible. And the funny thing is, sometimes you'll be in a room and your friends are also I would say your acquaintances. That's what I'm saying. People you agree with on the side will get into a group and all of a sudden look at you like you're crazy. And then when you meet them again, separately, they're like, yeah, your point was really good. Da, 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 da. So what I decided to do was, one, I became aware. I became aware of the fact that I might not belong. And I felt the grief. I think sometimes, you think you've dealt with all the grief, and then another experience happens that takes you back to that place, and you're like, oh Lord, oh Goddess, I thought I healed this. Because like I said, you're very sensitive to rejection. So don't treat yourself like, oh, you're not healed just because you've gotten sensitive again. But I want you to feel the grief of knowing that you might never belong. Because that is very liberating. Yes, it's painful at first, but it's protection over time. And when you feel the grief, the next thing I want you to do is make peace with the fact that you will leave the empty space or the empty chairs for those who say you can't sit there. So this is actually, I'm quoting Alessia Cara in Wild Things. This was actually one of my favorite songs, and now I understand why. When the song came out, it was all that I played. It's called Wild Things. If you don't know this song, go listen to it. She's basically talking about the fact that she is an outlier. Yeah? She is a different person from society, but she's not going to keep begging society to accept her, to choose her. She's going to create her own space where she's going to find like-minded people. For me, that would be healing with Nam. Let me tell you guys, before I started, healing with Nam, I was the eccentric person who people would just like, and this is the thing, because people will mock you, but again, like, so sometimes you lack social awareness, so you don't even pick up on that. Okay, you have a lot of awareness, but you lack the, the social choreography. So someone could be like, hey Nam, what is my star saying today? And that's supposed to be funny. Like, it's a joke to them. And the thing is, I would be like, oh, you're an Aquarius and da 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 da, this is what's happening. And so they'd be dumbfounded, like, oh, she's serious. Like, it was a joke for a very long time, but I really didn't care, because you have to get to that point where you're like, I know that I'm never going to be long, and I don't care. Because let's face it, when we would go to class, I would beat them hands down. Yeah. And then I also had another life, I guess, another galaxy that I was exploring. And so when I started selling my crystals, I didn't even think that there were people in Uganda who were interested in these things, but I just knew that I wanted them. And I said, well, if I can't get them in Uganda, because it was COVID time, and I looked everywhere, I'm like, if I can't get them in Uganda, then I'm going to find them and bring them here. And I created my own community. And honestly, I feel very validated by it. And now it's to a point where, like, you can't come and gaslight me about my beliefs. I have a community. Now, I'm not saying because I have a community that sometimes I don't get the rejection sensitivity. No, it still happens, because you still navigate situations where you feel like, oh, this is a bit weird. But one thing that I've told myself is, do not allow yourself to be rejected twice. Once is enough. If you're in a group and you realize when you speak, you're ignored, the first time might be a mistake, but the moment you pick up on it, and you're like, oh, this is actually a pattern, do not try anymore. Because trust me, any attempt is going to make everything worse. And not only that, like I told you, as a neurodivergent person, your mind goes to deeper places. You might be in your luteal phase at the time. It's going to worsen your mental health in that moment. You know, you're going to be replaying the fact that, oh, I got so embarrassed. Oh, I got so this. Oh, I got so that. You know? So, only allowed to be rejected once. And I want you to also get a hobby. When I say get a hobby, I mean, what things are you interested in? What eccentric things are you interested in? Best believe there is a community that is interested in the same things. If it's a book club and you go to this book club and you realize all these women are giving me weird eyes, look for another one. Vibes don't lie. Okay? Vibes do not lie. So, get a hobby. And you see, this is another thing, like, it becomes easier for you to focus less on the rejection in other rooms when you have a place that feels like home. It's the equivalent of having girlfriends, who love and support you. And let's say you go to work and, you've had a really tough day, but then you get back home and you realize there's love at home. It helps you create that balance. Because I cannot promise you that the world is going to change overnight. That would be a lie. But I can tell you that you can literally change the rooms that you walk into. And if you must be in a particular room, then you're smart enough. You already know what you know, the social cues, some of the social cues that you've studied. So contribute less. Be kinder to your nervous system. Don't put yourself in compromising situations. You know these people do not like you, but then you're putting out a heartfelt message to them, maybe in the group or something. They are going to ignore you. Understand that. Because you are very sensitive to rejection, so it's not going to change overnight. So just become aware. And obviously, if you're an energy girl, you can quantum leap. Every rising when you wake up, visualize. Sit there and before you get out of bed and you're still sleepy, visualize a space where you feel at home, where you feel happier, where people love you, where there's community and stuff like that. But please remember that you have a lower ability to emotionally buffer, or emotional buffering, which is basically absorbing emotional experiences without becoming so overwhelmed by them. And that's why in the first episode, I talked about protecting your energy. Understand that you are more sensitive than the next person, and do everything in your power to make sure that you are giving yourself peaceful experiences. When something negative happens, that's okay. You can call back your energy to yourself. Get into the habit of meditation. Get into the habit of self-affirmation. Talk to yourself. Speak life into yourself. Speak gratitude. Speak love. Whatever it is that you feel you're missing in that moment, you're feeling isolated, you're feeling lonely, speak the opposite into your life. Speak until you feel it. So you have to be honest with yourself. And I believe that will make your experience better. This was an interesting conversation and a very good venting session as well. Like I said, I'm still figuring most of these things out as well. So I'm not speaking from a place of complete mastery, but I can say that I have gotten to a certain level that I think you can mirror. Thank you for trusting me with your energy, and I wish you a great week.